Hi, Philip. Thank you for introduction. Okay, let me start. Let me try starting with sharing my screen. All right, here we go. Do you see it?
Yes.
I assume so. So, good morning, everybody. In fact, it's a very early morning for me. I guess this is what I get when I tell Matt that I don't like his heads. Anyway, today I will talk about MySQL and ClickHouse and a real quick intro about me. I'm CTO at Percona, and you can find me behind all our Percona software, like Percona Server for MySQL, Percona X3B Cluster, Percona Extra Backup. And currently I'm focusing on what I may technology researcher activity. I'm looking at what another cool technology software or features to bring into Percona product line. And you can find me on Twitter, and if you look interested on what I'm working on right now, you can follow me on our Percona blog. So what is a ClickHouse anyway? You might not know ClickHouse as it is not yet popular as MySQL, but I definitely hope someday it will be. So if you don't know what a ClickHouse is, it is a fast open source online analytical processing database management system. It is a column-oriented, and it allows for to execute analytical reports with SQL queries in real time. And there is some checklist from ClickHouse product page. Fast, scalable, feature-rich, hardware optimized, high available and default tolerant. And real quick into details why ClickHouse is fast. It utilizes vectorized processing on modern CPU. It processes data in parallel, adopts shared nothing architecture, and it deploys column store methodology pretty much like Vertica and other columnar databases, which allows to achieve great data compression, columnar locality, and no random reads. And why do we need ClickHouse ever if we use MySQL? Need for ClickHouse, I see when it comes to real-time analytics, to very fast data processing. And everybody has his own definition for real-time. For me, real-time, it's when query returns results faster than me making a cup of my espresso. So let's for example, for this query in MySQL. It's even simple query which does aggregation on whole table. You can see that the count and the group by in MySQL for this table will take almost 6 minutes, a little bit long for my taste. And you might ask, Arne, why exactly ClickHouse are not there other databases for analytics? When you try to Google and find the column store analytical database, you will find all these names and probably tens of others. But as oriented on open source technology, we really wanted to find a real open source SQL capable, scalable, and also important, affordable database analytical solutions. And we think ClickHouse it is. So this query for MySQL, and to compare the similar query in ClickHouse will take under 0.2 seconds. And I highlight here some numbers. It's always impressive to see 3.5 billion rows per second estimation processing time. Processing time in billion rows per second always impresses me. And you can compare query execution time. Well, I mixed up, it's ClickHouse against MySQL. So ClickHouse 0.145 seconds against 5 minutes 47 seconds in MySQL. So you can ask, if a ClickHouse so fast, why then do we ever need MySQL? Well, there are always drawbacks and benefits in this life, and the ClickHouse actually not as good for quick transactions, as it's storage oriented for bulk operations, for processing data in big chunks. It is not very efficient for small transactions. And I think that's enough details about ClickHouse. You can Google or whatever your favorite search engine is, and or you can look up for materials already available on Percona conferences and in Percona presentations. So if MySQL is good for quick transactional processing and the ClickHouse is good for real-time analytics, how do we get the best? How do we get the best of two worlds? And why do we need this? And you say if you run online transaction processing system, why do we need a ClickHouse? So even with this, even we process data, some data processing in my experience always generates some data, which later you might want to analyze. Even for example, from this sysbench TPCC workload, which is a traditional online transactional workload, we have orders. We have order lines, we have customers coming to system, make orders, and we produce a history table, which contains pretty much history of all our activity. And then we want to come and to analyze the data. And you remember that even a simple group by operation in MySQL on a table with 500 million rows takes over 5 minutes to produce results. And for this example, I use very mild numbers with ClickHouse and with real busy online system. We can generate much more than billions of rows. And so with a ClickHouse, you will get multi-dimensional data processing, which will allow you to generate results with aggregation, filtering, and group by multiple dimensions. And even in our Percona monitoring and management, even it's not visible behind the scene in version 2.0, ClickHouse replaced MySQL in a query analytics module, which now allows you multi-field filtering, aggregation, and the sorting by queries. And you don't even notice that you will get a ClickHouse with our appliance. This is how small, efficient, and not very resource demanding it is. So now question comes, how do we integrate MySQL and ClickHouse? Obviously, we have some tables in MySQL, some tables in ClickHouse, and we want, from application standpoint of view, to have some kind of a single pane of glass. I know Matt loves that expression, so maybe I will get some points for using that. So for application, how from application standpoint of view we connect to this hybrid system to get a convenient experience. And for this, let me show my showcase. I will use a sysbench TPCC benchmark, which is roughly based on TPCC queries, again, online transactional processing benchmark. And it has all characteristics of online transactional system: customers, orders, warehouses, history. Benchmark by itself tries to generate as many queries per second as possible. That's very great for MySQL. And we want to analyze orders in the bulk, again, aggregation per region, per customer, per period of time. That's a good workload for ClickHouse. Now, so sysbench, very typical setup. You might find it in hundreds of my blog posts on percona.com. Sysbench generates workload against MySQL, produces orders, order lines, history. How do we fit ClickHouse here? ClickHouse, we can integrate ClickHouse into system by using data replication, and data replication should be familiar for you if you're using MySQL. That's a master-slave technology used by data replication technique. But for ClickHouse, we can choose. We don't want to replicate all tables. We can pick and choose what tables we want to replicate. And right now, it's important that we replicate only selected, say, append-only tables. And append-only, that's important because ClickHouse currently does not handle well update or delete statements. And again, it comes with a limitation because ClickHouse uses column story with data structure, which is oriented for very fast data retrieval in bulks, not to handle small update or delete transactional like statements. And I'm saying it does not handle well. It still can change data in bulk. You can run bulk update on bulk delete statement, but ClickHouse prefers it should be a rare operation, not online transactional processing. So currently append-only data for ClickHouse, and using a familiar MySQL technique, MySQL replication technique, we can deploy tools that reads data from MySQL replication stream, transforms data, and inserts data in ClickHouse. And to work with MySQL replication streams, there are already libraries available in the Python, Golang. That's what comes to the top of my head, but there are probably more available. And there are actually already some tools built on these libraries. To name a few, there is a storage stepper, a tool by Uber. There is a continuing tangents replicator, which I know can replicate data into ClickHouse. And there is a tool produced by company Altinity, clickhouse-mysql-data-reader, which taps into MySQL replication stream. So let's see on this clickhouse-mysql-data-reader. It allows you automatically create a destination table, perform initial data import, and then continuously read events from MySQL binary logs and insert them into ClickHouse. That's a simple setup for a daemon, which always runs into the ground and produces a replication stream. between MySQL and the ClickHouse. In this case, we use it for table history one, which will be replicated into ClickHouse. So you can say, well, that's a problem solved. Our task is done, but that's not so fast. Now we end up with a situation where some tables are in MySQL and some tables in ClickHouse. And now how we can query and join them together. As you remember, we don't replicate all tables into ClickHouse, only some of them. So how we can run a query against all tables. And yeah, so we want to run this analytical query against a history table and then join with MySQL tables, how we can achieve that. And that's if you're familiar a little bit with the online analytical warehouse systems, that's a typical setup where you have fact tables and where you store all your facts, very huge, very big table, and probably smaller tables, which are lookup tables. In this setup, fact table is stored in ClickHouse, and all lookup table are located in MySQL. So for this, ClickHouse allows you to use external engines, and conveniently there is a MySQL external engine. So you can define table in a ClickHouse, which is only table definition, but in background it goes to MySQL and retrieves the data from MySQL. So yeah, a fact table is stored in ClickHouse, and dimensions table are stored in MySQL. And then you can perform a join query, where in this case we join order line with warehouse, and order line is stored in ClickHouse, and warehouse dimension table is stored in MySQL. And you can see, well, this is a little bit heavier query. It took 46 seconds for ClickHouse to process, but compared to MySQL, if you run this query plainly in MySQL, it takes 7 minutes 30 seconds. That's an improvement I will take any day. So what we got here with the ClickHouse client, we can log into ClickHouse and execute analytical query, which will query and join tables in different databases. But even more to that, the ClickHouse now allows you to use MySQL Protocol. So now even with the MySQL client, you can log into ClickHouse server and run a similar query with using MySQL Protocol. So using even a very you're familiar MySQL command line, you log into ClickHouse and you can execute that query using your very familiar MySQL tools. So MySQL Protocol allows you to achieve MySQL look and feel, which would allow you very minimal application migration, just to switch to this hybrid deployment between MySQL and ClickHouse. And if you're lucky enough, an application that works with MySQL might work out of box with ClickHouse. And there are more details about that in my blog post, ClickHouse and MySQL better together. So to fill that question mark, we can allow great integration between MySQL and the ClickHouse to be this transparent and convenience application using data replication techniques, using MySQL external engine available in ClickHouse, and deploying MySQL protocol to connect to ClickHouse. So, but there are some improvements needed. Of course, there always are. So, what improvements I foresee? first, we need to better support of update and delete statements in ClickHouse. I know it should be in the ClickHouse roadmap, and maybe eventually ClickHouse will be more friendly for update the delete statements. I would love to see ClickHouse to deploy more traditional data types. As you can see, there is a insert from ClickHouse table definition. You can see data types probably were created for C++ engineers, not for database administrator. I would like to see more database familiar data types. And products, what I mentioned, clickhouse-mysql-data-reader, it works, but I would say it still needs some polishing to be production ready. So please test it before you're using production. And for the last slide, I was asked to ask you to take open source data management survey. It will help us to understand the technology landscape and what technology are interest you right now. Please do that. Now, I see I have 3 minutes left, and if there are any questions, I can try to feed them in the 3 minutes.
I do not see anything in our Slack channel, either YouTube, but I have one question from the email which we received previously.
Yep.
It's not really related to your talk, but it's about integration with visualization tools and with ODBC. In particular, does ClickHouse work with business intelligence tools such as Tableau? How well is it supported?
Yes, I know that a lot of business analytical tools, they use ODBC drivers, and thankfully there is ODBC driver from ClickHouse, again available by company Altinity, which is well maintained and supported, and I know they are able to connect to ClickHouse from Tableau using ODBC driver. But now, as I mentioned in my presentation, ClickHouse even deploys MySQL Protocol. So some tools which are working with MySQL probably should be also working with ClickHouse by just deploying MySQL Protocol and not without using ODBC drivers.
All right, I see another one from Slack.
Yep.
Is ClickHouse data reader compatible with schema changes in table on master?
No, I don't think so. Well, that's like I say, I would like to see it more production ready. So this is more fragile setup yet. So you need to be very careful what you do with your tables when you replicate data stream from MySQL to ClickHouse.
All right. That's it. No
All
more
right.
questions. Thank you,
Right.
Vadim.
Thank you, Philip. Right. Thank you, everybody.